Welcome to the Equine Vet Connect Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Carter. I'm a veterinarian and a farrier. The goal of this podcast is to educate horse people, break things down, bust myths, and keep it real. Speaking of breaking things down, here's my legal disclaimer to keep my attorney and insurance company happy. While I am a vet, I may not be your vet. Contact them before trying anything you hear on this podcast. Remember, just because you watched it on YouTube or heard it on a podcast does not mean you can do it. Please use common sense. All right, welcome back to the Equine Vet Connect Podcast. We kind of threw this one together, not impromptu, but
kind of.
It was on the list of things. It jumped the line.
Yeah. We sped this up. So, you got Dr. Caitlyn McCauley with me here today. Actually, it's Caitlyn Hoffman now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to screw that up forever.
It's like the new year. It takes you 2 months to actually get used to it. So.
You know, most of the people I've worked for, their last name never changed in my mind. I just keep rocking with it. But
it's okay.
I mean, we got Caroline Brown over here. Who's actually Caroline Fiole. Can't get that one right either.
Legally, but here I'm still Brown. So.
Yeah.
Still Brown.
He didn't go to school. He don't get that.
You
so
know, I get it.
It's all the same.
So, but so in light of recent events, I don't know how many people by the time this podcast hits, I think everybody that owns a horse probably know about this, but we've had a little herpes outbreak out in the Texas world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Texas, and I think it has spread into Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
As of the filming of this podcast.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Throughout the day-to-day, we have become inundated with phone calls like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do today is we're going to just tell y'all the truth about herpes and what you should and should not do, what's important, what's not important. Because if I see one more person on TikTok spouting out some stupid stuff, I may lose my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So first thing I'm going to start with is get medical advice from someone whose first name is Doctor.
Yes.
Okay.
Amen. We should just end the podcast right there. So.
Yeah.
So if their first name isn't Doctor, do not trust them for medical advice. I think that's just a good rule to live by in veterinary medicine and in human med.
Correct.
There's a lot of kind of panic, pandemonium, misinformation being spread around. It's easy to get kind of lost in the sauce when these things happen because everybody jumps on the train and wants to put information out as fast as possible. But that's not always accurate or advisable for every person's situation. So we just wanted to come on and like Dan said, give us the facts, give everybody the facts, and then remind you to make a plan with your veterinarian for your specific situation.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
Everything we're going to tell you today comes from basically 2 resources. Most of this we knew inherently already just because we try to keep up. I've been through a couple of these already. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to make sure everything was factual. So we got 2 resources we're going to be kind of breaking down for you. One of them is a consensus statement from the American College of Veterinary Internal Medicine peoples. These are a lot of really smart people that study herpes. The other one is the AAEP, American Association of Equine Practitioners. We've got their herpes virus guidelines as well. These are very recent. In fact, the ACVIM is not even a year old yet.
No, it's not. It's very, very recent. So.
Very recent. And the one from the AAP, it's about 3 years old, but I'll be real honest with you, they both read about the same.
Mm-hmm.
This one, so let's dive into this.
Yes.
But you need to know, like, what we're telling you is facts. It's the truth. It's everything you needed to know about the herpes virus.
Correct.
So we're going to dive in. Herpes virus is, what we're going to be talking about today mostly is Equine Herpes Virus 1. There is a 3 and there is a 4. There's a 2.
And a 2.
There's a 2
and a 5.
But the ones you mostly hear about are 1s, 3, and 4.
Yes.
But
Yes.
5 is, I have found 5 a couple times.
It's a bingo card.
Yes.
It's a bingo card.
Yeah.
Definitely a check mark. So 1 and 4, the ones we most commonly hear about, that's the ones if you've ever had your horse vaccinated for rhino or herpes. We're talking about 1 and 4. So they can cause upper respiratory signs. They both cause upper respiratory.
Yes.
1's a little bit unique.
Yes.
It can cause abortions, and it can cause, there's a neurologic form.
Yes. And when you start to hear about these big outbreaks, most of the time it's because this neurologic form is what's going around. That's when people start to get really scared.
Right.
Is it specifically these neurologic strains?
Yeah, because the respiratory stuff and the abortion stuff, I don't want to say it's quite common, but it happens. Nobody really gets worked up about it. Nothing, I mean, It's pretty I mean, well, the abortion's not I guess it is technically self-limiting.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, and
Once you evict the one
Yeah.
resident, you don't have another one. So
True.
mhm.
Yeah.
But so let's dive into the neurologic form of herpes, because that's really, if you're listening to this episode, that's really what you care about, is the neurologic form of herpes. So let's dive into this. Interesting enough, there are both the neuropathic form and the non-neuropathic form,
Mhm.
but the non-neuropathic can cause
neurologic signs,
Yeah.
which is
So let's cover that one real quick, because it's pretty quick, or not
Mhm.
quick, but it's kind of interesting. I feel like we can dig into that one pretty quick. So we're going
Mhm.
to talk about the non-neuropathic form of herpes virus 1
yes.
that also causes neurologic
Neurologic
signs.
signs, yes.
So
This disease, we call this rhinopneumonitis. Basically you see a lot of respiratory signs, fever, and we're talking like 104 plus,
yes,
very high fevers.
106 is not uncommon.
106, yeah. So very high fevers, nasal discharge, coughing on these guys. They feel like crap.
Mm-hmm.
And they get a vasculitis, and the vasculitis is where we think a lot of these neurologic signs start happening.
Yeah, vasculitis is just where your blood vessels get inflamed.
Yes.
They get really ticked off, really angry. And that's when the vasculitis starts.
Yes. And then there are vessels going all over your body, including to your spinal cord
And brain.
and your brain. So when those get inflamed, those will cause some neurologic signs. And so even if you have these non-neuropathic strains, if you have inflammation in this area, you are going to get some neurologic signs.
Mm-hmm. So that's why the non-neuropathic will cause, or can
Cause that.
neurologic
Yes.
signs.
Yeah.
Vasculitis, they can actually lead all the way to blood clots.
Yes, they can.
You can start to get some blood clots,
We've-
hemorrhage.
We've seen some that they throw some massive
clots.
clots. Massive clots.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what happens when you have a stroke.
Yes.
Easy way to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the non-neuropathic form that actually causes neurologic disease. That is some great naming.
Yes.
Way to go, team.
The whole thing about herpes is that it all kind of intermingles and overlaps, and so it can make kind of weeding this out and figuring out exactly what you're dealing with a little bit difficult, and makes the tracking of the disease process a little bit hard.
Right.
Because it's not cut and dry. None of this is black and white. It's all the clinical signs kind of ebb and flow, and they overlap, and so we have to really be diligent about watching these things and figuring out what exactly is going on.
And especially when you're just talking about the respiratory signs,
Mhm.
they're not very specific
No.
either. So this can look like
A lot of
a
things.
lot of different things.
Mhm.
And the only way that we really know what we're doing is when we start testing for it, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But,
Mhm.
this can look like a lot of things. And so, when we're dealing with a sick horse, that's where, hey, this biosecurity in your barn, which we've talked about across many episodes,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
comes into play.
Well, and going back to those clinical signs, this can look like influenza. It can look like a strep zoo infection. It can look like an EVA infection, equine viral arteritis. It can look like any of these. And we're going to get into testing later, but this is truly where you've got to testing and test often and test early.
Yes.
All right. PCR these guys. Figure out what you're dealing with. Because it's very, very important you know which one you did. Because flu, you're going to manage completely different than you are this thing comes back positive for EHV-1.
Yeah.
Even if
Yes.
it comes back positive for EHV-4, we're cool with that.
Yeah. The HV4 is like, we're smooth sailing
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
that. We're fine. That one, I don't even think that one's reportable in this state.
I don't know if it is or not, come to think of it.
No, it's not.
So
It's not.
I always have to look that up. But
Yep.
but one, that's where the vasculitis comes in. That's where we can have these blood clots. That's where we can have, you can actually get hemorrhage from it as well,
Yeah.
Mhm.
both ways. And that's where you can get, that's when the non-neuropathic form causes neurologic.
Mhm.
And the only way, we'll talk about this later too, the only way we're going to separate that out is we've got to run the PCRs and type which one of the, yes, all of herpes 1 virus, but there can be different mutations that cause this. And so
Mhm.
knowing which one you've got is how we're going to go about managing it.
Right.
Yep.
So testing is really, really critical. So when we're talking about the neurologic form of herpes virus, we're talking about these gene mutations that cause it to attack the brain and the spinal cord.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads to some pretty acute neurologic signs.
Yes.
One of the hallmarks beyond that high fever is the dribbling of urine.
Yes.
That is basically almost pathognomonic. These horses, they just stand there and dribble urine
Mm-hmm.
constantly. And so that's when we walk in, we got a high fever, and this thing's standing there dribbling urine. We all get a little puckered.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Little bit of panic.
Yep.
So
Because that's when the paperwork starts.
yes.
So
And again, it's not always necessarily herpes, but we're treating it as such until proven otherwise.
Right.
yes,
The other things like dog sitting, ataxia, kind of recumbency, weak back end, things like that. Those again can be lots of other things, but if we see that horse that's really weak in the back end or doing what we call dog sitting, that's the first place my brain goes is EHV-1. So
especially if that fever's involved.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
that's a big indicator because, again, if you think about a common thing is EPM, equine protozoal myeloencephalitis, very similar clinical signs.
Mm-hmm.
but they don't get fevers.
They don't have fevers.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So-
one of the things I'm seeing a lot with this outbreak is they're saying that some of these horses are getting these respiratory signs with 0 fevers at all,
Mhm.
which I'm not saying that they never did, but sometimes these fevers can hit very early.
Yes, and they can be hard to catch. They kind of go in 2 phases and they're transient. They kind of come and go. And so unless you're checking these horses diligently, or if say you're still checking them twice a day, but their fever's coming, you're checking them at 8 and 8 and their fever's coming at 10 and 10.
Mhm.
You may
might
miss
miss
it.
it.
Yes.
Well, it kind of takes a break in there. Like days
Mhm.
1 and 2, you're more likely to catch a fever, and then days 6 and 7, that's the next best time to catch that fever.
Right. Right.
So it can be, it can become very difficult.
Right.
So
So we're not, like Caroline said, we're not saying that
It-
they
We're not saying that like you missed something, but it's very possible.
possible.
This disease does weird things.
Yeah.
It is a weird guy. So
and that's what also makes it difficult when we get into the management. Is you're trying to figure out what it is and what to do and how to respond.
Mhm.
And a lot of it's going to depend on what you see when you arrive. There's
Yes.
a lot of things that have to be weighed, and that's why like early intervention's a big thing.
Mhm.
So when we're talking about herpes, herpes infections are very common in horses. Most horses get herpes
at a very young age.
at a young age,
Uh-huh.
and it stays latent. As we all learned in health class, herpes is forever. You don't really get rid of it.
The gift that
So,
keeps on giving.
Yes. And it's when this virus becomes activated again or is no longer latent.
And that happens with times of stress. So travel,
Travel.
showing, which is why we tend to see these outbreaks at shows. That's where they typically originate.
Mhm.
Yeah, and when that starts to happen, this virus becomes active, and it's a mutation in the virus is what sets us up for the neurologic form. So it's not like it's been sitting there latent as a neurologic form of the virus. It's been just there.
And this thing can pass around.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
This virus gets around. It's not just nose to nose contact. This thing can travel.
Yes.
This thing is airborne.
Yeah, respiratory droplets, so coughing,
Uh-huh.
snorting, all of those that put respiratory secretions like mucus into the air, those suckers can
Mhm.
go.
The most common form is that nose to nose contact where
Mhm.
you've got the direct contact. That's the most likely form of transmission. However, aerosolized droplets can cause it. And then
If you've ever been sneezed on by a horse, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
That thing can-
droplets.
that thing can travel.
Yes.
34 feet, that's how far this thing can travel.
Yes.
Only sneeze, 34
Uh-huh.
feet.
Yep.
And I think that's important to remember when we get into biosecurity and such. And the other thing is environmental contamination.
Yeah.
This is a survivor. I was reading in here, we're looking at about 14 days in optimal conditions.
Without disinfectants.
Yeah.
Yes.
I read 35 in some
Mhm.
situations.
Up to 35
I was
in
like,
prime
that's,
optimal conditions.
that is crazy, like,
Yeah.
for a virus.
So that comes into play when we talk about like environment and fomites as
Mhm.
well. So fomites is anything that like brushes, boots, your clothes, your, you
Mhm.
know, your
bits,
buckets,
tack.
all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's really critical when if you find yourself into this, like this is a time when I always say, I need you to start thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Who have you come into contact with? Because we're trying to determine your risk.
Right.
That's how we're going to advise you is we're going to look at your risk scenario, because when you're dealing with these kind of transmissions, if you say you were stalled right next to a person that had this, we're a lot more worried than if you're like, no, I just stayed at the trailer the whole time and didn't really
Yeah.
see anybody.
Or if they were
Mhm.
multiple barns away,
right.
you know, we're we're still going to be on alert, but if we're kind of going on a, risk-based.
And you've got to think about timeline too, because every disease has what we call an incubation period, which is your time from when you were exposed or when you picked it up to when you start seeing clinical signs. And that with this one can go anywhere from 24 hours to 6 days. So you kind of have to think back on that whole time frame of like, okay, where were my horses? What were we doing? Especially if you've gone multiple places in that period.
Which is why I think it's amazing that they've been able to track this as well as they have been. Like, because I mean, all this kind of has broken within the last like 24 hours.
Yeah.
But I mean, this show that they're all kind of connecting it to, that was several weeks ago. But the fact that they've all been able to trace everything back to that is like massively impressive.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's what makes it challenging too, because you can be shedding virus before showing clinical signs.
Correct. Yes, you can.
So you're looking at a 24-hour to 6-day incubation period, but you may not be showing these fevers for several days.
Right.
Well, during that time, you're shedding virus.
And again, this virus likes to sit around and be latent, and it shows up at horse shows. And with horse shows, you've got people coming from all over the place.
Right.
Well, and that's what makes this particular, because this is one thing I've seen. I've been through a couple of these outbreaks. If you think about it, like if you're at a jumper show, your dressage show, pleasure show, cutting shows, those type of venues, people show up and they're there. I mean, it could be anywhere from that weekend, and it could be several weeks long, but people show up and they're there. This happened in a rodeo type setting, and they're probably running into there. Some of these horses are going to compete multiple times that weekend at different places.
Right.
They're going to hit multiple different shows, and that's just the risk of that particular. And that's the thing. Like, I don't want anybody jumping on here and saying like, oh, they're just running around everywhere spreading disease. Like, no, that's just the way this event works.
Correct.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And if you really look, I've been a part of 4 herpes outbreaks in 15 years. Or not been a part, but I've been aware of 4 herpes outbreaks in about 15 years. And so when you really think about it, your risk isn't like, you don't want to run around worrying about this.
Right.
If it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Right.
But there are precautions we're going to talk about you can take.
Right.
And the biggest thing is when one of them does show up, fast identification, biosecurity, how to be protected, things of that nature. But that's what makes this a little trickier, is because it can spread quite rapidly.
Yes. And again, in the nature of a horse show where you have people coming from all over, and now they're dispersing and they're going back to where they came from. They're going to the next show. Now they're interacting with these horses, and your web just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it makes it very difficult to track that. So,
Yeah.
and that's where it can get scary, because I think this event that they said that this might have originated from, there were over 1,000 horses there.
So let's talk about, because because one of the things I want to make sure we don't do is spread a lot of fear. We want to spread facts, not fear. So I don't want anybody freaking out, because I feel like that's what I've been dealing with all day, is everybody's freaking out.
Panicked. Yes.
One of the things I've noticed, it usually kind of sits within a certain discipline, just because those horses are together. So being in the Western world, barrel horses, because I think it originated in some barrel horses, a big barrel race. And so if you're in that world, you're more likely to come in contact with those individuals, and it'll say you were showing Arabs. It's going to be it's different. So you got to really look and say, okay, what's my population that I'm around?
Right.
What is my risk there? And then also, if you find yourself, you're like, I think I could have been exposed. What do you need to do now? Like that, because that's the question we get asked. Like, I may have been exposed. What do I need to do now?
Call your veterinarian.
Call your vet and
Yes.
figure out a plan.
Yes.
Because and again, that's where we're going to say, hey, if you were next door to somebody that was showing signs, or they just, were really suspicious of a case, or they just got confirmed, we might tell you, don't go home.
Right.
Do not go back to your home barn.
If you've got other horses there, you need to consider that.
You need to not go back to that home barn. We might say, hey, you need to find some temporary lodging somewhere else. Because if you were that exposed to it, we can't risk you bringing this back.
Right.
And so, if you do go, because most of the time unfortunately, you're going to be home before we find out what this happened.
Right.
When you look at incubation periods, by the time this actually hits, that this occurred, and we've got testing back, things like that, most likely you're going to be home. So when you do get home and you realize you may have been exposed, stay there.
Stay there. Don't leave.
Stay there. Just don't travel. Okay. If you have the risk, And this is our advice.
Yeah.
Your veterinarian may have something different, but I'm going to tell you stay home.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you to stay home. We're going to start monitoring those temps twice a day. If that temp's above 1015, I need to know. Like, I need to know. It may not be this, but if that temp's above 1015, I need to know about it.
And you need to be taking the temp on all of your horses that are there. Like, even if the other horses didn't travel, even if they're not showing signs yet, start taking temps.
Right.
If possible, try to isolate the horse that was possibly exposed. Try to isolate those from the other horses if at all possible. Remember that 34 feet. If 34 feet's good, 50 feet's even better.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Try to prevent spread by shared water buckets. You know, when you feed them last. When you take care of them last. Try to do whatever you can to minimize that. Now, the hard part is like shutting the barn door when the horse is already out. You've come home, you've reintegrated them into the herd. There's a high risk that if they had this virus, it may jump to the other horses. But I still think it's a good idea. Let's segregate just in case, based on incubation periods. Maybe your horse isn't shedding virus yet, so let's get them isolated.
Right.
It's varied in these two different papers as far as how long we should keep them isolated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw 14 to 28 days. I saw, 21 days. It's kind of...
I think it really, again, I think it depends on the nature of the disease. I think it depends on, how they're shedding, like how sick they are. And I don't think we've even mentioned, so this disease is reportable in, I think all the states it is.
Yes.
And so if we run testing for this disease or we're highly suspicious of it, like we've got a case and we're awaiting our test results, we let the state know.
The state often knows about it before we
get it resolved because these laboratories have to mandatory
it.
report to the state. So by the time that they're emailing it to us, the state's already called
us and been like, hey.
So when you have one of these outbreaks, the state will be getting involved with you. And they are helping us as the veterinarians to, set these guidelines and do all that. And each state kind of has their own set of ways, but it's going to be really case dependent on things and, how big this outbreak is. Is it one horse? Is it 4? How sick are we? What kind of signs are we showing?
Well, and that's where, if I've got to give my thought, I'm going to say stay home 28 days. I mean, that's just kind of my personal take on this is 28 days. If 14 is good, if you're 14 to 28, I'd rather take the 28 because you don't want to be that person, right?
Yeah.
Like, Dan brought herpes to the horse show.
Nobody in, nobody out.
Yeah. You want to just shut it down.
Yes.
28 days, let's don't go anywhere.
Right.
If you think you've been exposed, check those fevers twice a day. Call your vet if those fevers pop up. Or if you start to see any of the other clinical signs, your fever, if you've got a snotty nose, if you've got those ataxias or that wobbliness we talk about, if you're dribbling urine, this is not the time to safety up and wait and see. It's time to make that phone call. Because we'll talk a little bit about that into possible treatments of this. We'll talk a little bit about that then, about why that's important and early intervention being important. So the other question we get is like, okay, I have been exposed. Is there anything I can do to treat this? I guess that's a good, before we get into vaccines, since we were talking about exposure, like what exists out there to treat this infection?
So treatment is, so it's a virus, right? So we can't reach for antibiotics. Antibiotics are not going to help us in this situation. Like any dewormers, things like that is not going to help you in this situation. So we basically have 2 things that we can go for, which is, antiviral medications and supportive care. This one's going to lean very heavily on supportive care, time, hydration, keeping them fed, making sure they've got good nutrients on board, hydration, all of those things, just all the supportive care that they need to kind of heal and get through this. But then we can also talk about the antivirals.
Yeah, so when we start talking about antivirals, there's 2 big ones that we talk about. One of them is acyclovir, and then the other one's valcyclovir. There's not a great deal of studies on how efficacious this is, but in what we do know, valcyclovir does tend to be better than acyclovir. But what is probably most important is early intervention is the most important. Like they actually showed, like if you were in a barn and a horse did have this, starting on valcyclovir has a better chance of preventing your horse from getting it than if you start treating them if they do have it.
If they're already showing signs, yes.
But that is one of the ones we typically reach for is valcyclovir. Again, supportive care being number one.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yep.
And in some of these, we're going to reach for steroids. If we start to show the neurologic signs, that's when we're going to start reaching for steroids.
Yes.
And this is also why it's really important to be with, to talk to your veterinarian to figure out where, based on what you're seeing and what you've got, of where you need to be. With
Right. And the one that I saw, the HEM case, we ended up catheterizing that horse's bladder just because the other thing, when they're dribbling this urine, they've got this atony too. So there's no muscle contraction going to there. So they can't even empty their bladder themselves, which is a lot of times why it's dribbling. And so putting a catheter in these guys, keeping them on fluids, watching this, that is like so important with these.
Right. And tell your vet, like, if you call them, like, we have a lot of people that haul in here, but if your horse starts showing these clinical signs, make sure you tell them, like, hey, my horse has been or possibly been exposed to this.
Yeah.
Because we're going to probably tell you to stay home, and we're coming to you.
Yeah.
Correct.
Like, we're coming to you on this one because we're trying to prevent that movement.
Right.
I mean, and if we do hospitalize, you got to be in an isolation type facility,
right.
which is really important.
Yeah.
And that's what's tough too is, certain facilities can't do proper isolation for this. Like, this is like, we kind of have like our levels of isolation type stalls. This is like full ISO. Like you are like
top tier
hazmat suit type, you know, that. And a lot of places can't do that. They just don't have the infrastructure for that. So,
because it is highly contagious.
It's very contagious.
So that's the difficult part when you start getting into treatment. We don't have great options. Like I said, valcyclovir is our best option. Steroids is the next great one. And then supportive care.
Yeah.
But the other downside to this is some of these neurologic symptoms they develop, they can be long-standing.
Yes.
They may not get over these quickly. So these could last for months and months and months. And so you don't really know what's going to be on the other side. But we do know the sooner we can intervene, the better off you are.
The better chance we get.
So that's really important. If you see these clinical signs, and I'm going to go through them again: fevers, that's anything above 101.5, snotty noses, dribbling urine, weak or staggering, and you've been in a situation where you could have been exposed, you need to call your veterinarian immediately.
Yes.
This is not a time to sit and wait.
Nope.
So the next biggest question we get asked a lot is prevention. What can I do to prevent this? This is where it gets tricky because the best prevention is to try to avoid it, right?
Correct.
But we've already talked about the downside is you may not know you've come in contact with one of these horses before. Like, you may not know until weeks later. Like I said, this outbreak was a week or two ago.
And the tricky part is a lot of these horses can be carrying this and shedding it with no clinical signs.
Yep.
And so you don't even always know where you got it. It's not like you can look out at a show pen and look at that horse and be like, oh, yep, that's the horse that is showing clinical signs. That's where I got it. That's not how this works.
Yeah, because that's the thing to remember is nobody's showing up to the horse show with a sick horse.
No.
Correct.
Not on purpose.
No.
So, there are things you can do while you're there to try to minimize that contact. I think that's just a good rule in general, is if you can minimize that contact with other horses, that's always a great thing.
Yeah, biosecurity is key.
Right.
We're going to talk a little bit about vaccination because this is
It's a hot topic.
this is the question I get asked. We vaccinated for herpes, so we shouldn't be able to get it, right?
Wrong.
Wrong.
And we talked about this when we did our vaccine podcast. The point of vaccines is, in any disease, is not to prevent you from contracting the disease, but the point of the vaccine is to equip the body to be ready to handle it when you do contract the disease. That's the whole point of vaccines. This case is a little different because there's not a vaccine on the market that is labeled to protect against the neuropathic strain of EHV-1.
Yes. And if someone tells you that there is,
they're incorrect.
they are lying.
Yes.
Yep.
They do not have evidence of that.
No.
Unless something comes out in the next 2 days
Which would be a
before this
miracle.
podcast gets published. So
let's talk a little bit about that, about the vaccines, because we've got, in my mind, I think about we basically have 3 different vaccines for this. We have got the animal group, the killed vaccines. There's a killed vaccine, which is an EHV-1/4, and a along with the pneumobort, which is an EHV-1, just straight in the EHV-1. That's one we use in pregnant mares.
Correct.
Was that correct?
Yes.
EHV-1 was a killed vaccine.
Well, EHV-1, it's specifically the strain that causes the abortive vaccine. So,
Right.
yeah.
So we have those two vaccines. Those are given intramuscular, and they produce what's called an IgG antibody. So this is an antibody that circulates in the bloodstream. So once the virus, you get what's called a viremia, meaning once the virus has entered the bloodstream, then this particular antibody can go to work. But it has to get in there. It has to start circulating in the body before it can
do its thing.
The next one is we're going to talk about is the intranasal vaccine, which is a killed vaccine as well, but you actually give this intranasally. Because if we back up a little bit, the way herpes ends up in the body is it enters through the respiratory mucosa. So either through, and all that stuff's kind of tied together. Either you sniff it or you eat it. Like one of the way it's going to go, and it's going to enter through that respiratory mucosa. Now, and then once it gets there, it can spread to the lymph nodes. Once it gets to the lymph nodes, it spreads to the rest of the body. If you give an intranasal vaccine, you actually get what's called IgM, or mucosal immunity. So the thought process behind that is if we get this mucosal immunity, we can actually hopefully stop the virus from entering the body.
Correct.
So, which is great for the non-neuropathic form, but antibodies are specific.
Yes.
So the neurologic form, it's not going to be all that helpful.
No.
But if you're talking about a non-neuropathic form, the intranasal vaccine does have some in theory, should have really nice efficacy for that.
Right. It's said that it is supposed to do kind of two things. Number one, it reduces the viremia of it, which is, how hard that disease hits you. So the fevers might not be intense. They might not be as sick as they would be if they were not vaccinated. It also is going to decrease the rate of which that virus sheds. So it's going to slow down the transmission of that disease, which is, again, it's not perfect, but it does help in the greater population of things.
Right.
And really, you need both types of immunity. You need an IgG and an IgM. You need both of those if you want to be the most protected you can be.
Correct.
But again, there is not a vaccine that is labeled to prevent the neurologic form of herpes virus.
Correct.
There is also a modified live vaccine. The rhinomune vaccine is modified live. Those are really cool because when we give this vaccine, it mimics what the natural virus would do. And so most of the time, if you're talking vaccines, the modified lives can give you a better immune response than the other ones. But downside is that comes with a lot of times these horses don't feel real great.
Right.
No.
Because they're going through this transient viremia.
And they can spike a pretty intense fever if you give them this one. So
one of the things when we're reading through these consensus statements, when we're reading through this, is the timing of the vaccine.
Yes.
So if you're in the middle of an outbreak, this is not the time to give a vaccine.
No.
As far as if you think your horse has been exposed, I don't think this is a really great idea to give this vaccine. Because and we're talking about horses that could have potentially been exposed. That's what we're going to talk about now. They potentially could have been exposed. The reason being is oftentimes when we give one of these vaccines, they can get a transient fever. When all of a sudden you give this vaccine, you spike the fever, then $1 million question, is it the vaccine
or is it
herpes?
Correct.
So it can make that a little difficult to determine. There is some evidence, maybe boostering. We like to boost these vaccines if you're on the road a lot and twice a year. But like I said, in the middle of the outbreak, I'm really on the fence after reading this of whether I'm gonna suggest boostering a vaccine right now.
It's case by case. I mean, it really. That's why we're saying talk to your veterinarian and figure out your risk.
Right.
And,
And the good thing is the vaccine can help against the non-neuropathic strain that can also cause the neurologic form. So I want to make that very, very clear. It does help with the non-neuropathic strain.
It does.
So it's definitely a vaccine that if you're moving around, if you're traveling a lot, absolutely you need this one on board.
Yeah.
Yes.
You need it on board.
Yes. And I think this one's kind of tough too, because this is one of these vaccines that anybody can just go and buy. Really, you do not need to be a veterinarian to buy this. So please do not go and administer vaccines to your horses without some veterinary advice. because this is one of these situations where things can get really dicey. If we get into a situation where we are dealing with a suspect outbreak, let your veterinarian know if you've been self-vaccinating and doing this, because we need to know that in advance.
I think it's very important too. We talked about this a little bit when we talked about vaccines on the podcast, is knowing how those vaccines are handled.
Yes.
You know, I told you I have been into Tractor Supply. I've got the picture on my phone somewhere. I need to find it, but I watched these vaccines sit outside of the fridge on the floor, and there was this fan. It was like the fan that's blowing the hot air, you know, because when like when you cool things off, it's moving heat from inside. So that heat blows out from under the fan. And I watched these vaccines sit on the floor. I was there on a Saturday, and I took a picture of it. I was like, that's really cool. And then I had to go back again on Sunday.
No, was it still there?
It was still there.
I feel bad if I accidentally leave my cooler on my truck overnight.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
You mean your cooler, the show with ice packs, lasts more than 24 hours?
Exactly. Yes. And it's a pretty nice cooler, so it does stay pretty cold in there. But still, I feel, oh my God.
But and my question is like, you know, those vaccines were not delivered on Saturday.
Correct.
So that means minimum, the best case scenario, they got there Friday, and they set up, and like, why would it
said 50% off?
But
why didn't we put it inside the cooler? And so that when people ask me like, why should I contact my veterinarian about vaccine, is
quality control.
Because
quality control. I mean, we got temperature monitors on fridges. We're constantly watching the state of these vaccines.
We're checking the dates on them and the lot numbers, and
and like I said, I watched these sit outside. I know for 3 days. With a hot fan just blowing.
Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that makes me
I've got to find that picture. I'll find it. We'll post on the podcast. It was an awesome picture.
Oh, no.
It was years ago. It was fantastic.
That's awful.
So I think if I was going to sum up like the vaccine side of things, again, the most important thing is talk to your veterinarian.
Yeah. Yes.
Talk to your veterinarian.
Yeah.
If you think you've been exposed, make sure you tell your veterinarian that I think I may have been exposed. Let them help you make that decision, because there's a lot of things we need to walk through here.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of what ifs. And if you haven't been exposed, like, it's a good idea to have these vaccines on board if you're traveling.
Yes.
Let's reduce that risk, because like I said, they are protective against the non-neuropathic strain. And one thing I will say is, when you look at, if you're looking just straight EHV-1, the pneumobort vaccine, if you want to get a higher titer, if you want to looking for an IgG titer, the pneumobort vaccine is going to get you a great titer. So will the modified live, it'll get you a great titer. And then the 1-4 combination, again, it's still going to get you it'll get you enough of a titer, enough of a response to still protect you from disease.
Yeah. They're still good vaccines. We still recommend these vaccines for the respiratory form and the non-neuropathic form. We just can't promise that they protect against the EHV-1 neuropathic strain, because they don't. And that's why we worry about this outbreak so much when it happens, is because we don't have a way to stop it.
Right. Except for biosecurity.
Biosecurity, yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Biosecurity, stay home.
Stay home.
It's like COVID all over again.
Yeah.
Just, if you're sick, stay home. If
without
you're
the
worried,
margaritas to go, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That was the best part of COVID.
It was a good part of COVID.
So that's where we're at with kind of vaccination things. We've kind of cut through treatment. We've talked about what to do. The biggest thing is be prepared. Talk to your veterinarian. Be prepared.
Don't panic.
Have a plan too.
Yeah.
If you own a barn with lots of horses and you're traveling, or you're a boarding facility, have a plan in place that in the event that something like this happens, you have an idea. So again, if that means shutting it down and saying, hey, we're not having horses come in and out, we're not traveling, have your vaccines up to date, keep everybody informed, but have a plan. Yeah.
And I think it's a good idea too, just review on occasion with your veterinarian, like, what is a good biosecurity plan? Because I mean, the thing is, if you're going to follow real biosecurity, we would never have another horse show. It would never exist.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because you just can't do it.
Oh yeah.
So it's what we call acceptable risk, and this is one of those acceptable risks. However, in the case of one of these, it's a good idea to have a plan and work with your veterinarian to develop what that plan should look like.
Yeah.
Have them out to your facility, look at your facility and say, okay, well, this is a great spot for isolation. This is where we're going to isolate in case something were to occur.
Yeah.
And this isn't just for herpes, but a lot of other diseases as well.
Yeah.
And so having that plan in place, it's going to solve a lot of the panic.
And there's, there's a lot of good resources out there for biosecurity and what needs to happen, and then you can print those out and walk around with your farm with your veterinarian and go through those checklists and say, okay, I need to go get these things to have them ready, so that when you do get in this situation, you're not panic buying and everybody else is also panic buying, so now the feed store's out of buckets and
and trying to find information as fast as you can, and you're looking at the first thing that pops up on TikTok, which is
not accurate.
So,
and I think too, when we talk about cleanliness, I do want to talk a little bit about that, because cleanliness is the key here. Proper disinfection. To properly disinfect, step one, you have to remove all organic debris. This is poop, this is shavings, this is dust. You've got to remove that. If you're talking about a stall, all that has got to be removed.
Clean and disinfected are not the same thing.
Yes.
I think we did this in the Strangles podcast too.
We did.
And we also did this in the I think we did this in the vaccine podcast too.
So we've now done this 3 times.
It's just good information.
It is.
If you put hand sanitizer on your dirty hands, it does nothing.
Now your dirt is just
It's
sticky.
just still dirt.
It's sticky.
Sticky dirt.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you have not done anything. You have to wash your hands,
remove the dirt,
and then put the hand sanitizer on. It is the same thing.
Yeah.
For when you're cleaning your barn.
Yes. And so when we talk about disinfectants, there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's your bleaches, your quaternary ammonias. I'm a Virkon guy. I miss Rocal. Do you remember Rocal?
Yeah.
Is that not a thing anymore?
I can still smell it.
I love the way it smelled, though.
I didn't love the way it smelled, but it's embedded in my
I always liked Rocal.
nose.
It was I don't know if it's a thing anymore or not. I think everything's gone to Virkon. I have not seen
it. Probably
Rocal.
Killed everything. Probably this is too powerful.
But yeah, quaternary ammonias, which is what the Lysols are. They're quaternary ammonias.
They accidentally killed the last person that made it. So, that's why they don't make it anymore.
Yeah.
I think Rescue works on more of a peroxide basis.
Yeah.
So that's another good one that's got some antiviral properties. So clean well, disinfect. And that means if you think you were exposed, hey, it's a great time. That trailer's going to get that cleaning that
Oh,
that
yeah.
we need to do.
Do
Like
some scrubbing.
you hanging out at home, let's clean that trailer.
Uh-huh.
And that's another thing. Separate buckets when you go to horse shows.
Yes.
Don't bring those buckets into the barn.
Yeah.
Like have a separate stash for when you travel.
Yeah. Don't let your horse stick their head in the same bucket as the 8 other horses that are sitting up at the show ring.
Yep. That's just good. Think about your kids.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to think, what else do we need to cover on this? Like
we
I said,
didn't do like a piece of that. We didn't
testing.
get into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about testing. And guys, I apologize if we seem a little all over the place. Like we were trying to get this information out there as fast as we could. So we not as prepared.
And it's after hours. We do our best work in the morning.
Yeah.
We do. So we never do this.
We're potting without makeup for you.
I know.
Today. We're
I didn't put mine on. Didn't do my hair.
Yeah.
That's rough.
I know.
So yeah, when your veterinarian does come out to test, let's talk a little bit about that.
So our kind of gold standard for this is our PCR test and our virus isolation test. Those are our kind of most specific things that we say this is exactly what this is, and it's pathologic. It's not due to vaccines. It's not due to just picking something up. This is what it is. So we do a nasopharyngeal swab on these guys. So just like your COVID test, just going all the way up there. And then did that bring back some memories?
It's bad.
Digging up into
So
your sinuses.
To do that to get back in the country one time.
Ugh. They go way up there too.
They do.
I was like,
I know.
Itching my brain.
I know.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, that and whole blood. You can test for it on whole blood.
Yep.
In the cases of abortive equine herpes virus too, we didn't really talk about this, but the aborted materials that come out, that is full of herpes.
Yes.
So if your mare has an abortion and it's linked to this, that is just teeming with virus. Do not let other horses in that. Like that is everybody that was in that field. They are all now exposed to it. So,
and a little bit about testing. The PCR is kind of become the gold standard here. In PCRs, where we can make vast copies of genetic code, and then we're able to analyze what that genetic code is. I think this is really important because the lab can only do what you ask them to do. So if you are sending in, you need to make sure that they understand you're looking for both the neuropathic and the non-neuropathic form of herpes.
Yes.
Not all labs can test for the neurologic form of herpes. So you need to make sure that whatever lab this is getting sent to is looking for the neuropathic form of herpes as well. So PCR, qualitative real-time PCR, this is a pretty quick test. That's a great thing. Rapid turnaround, 24 to 48 hours. You're going to have results.
They're working on one that's even faster now. They're slowly working on one that we could have the test results back in a matter of hours. So.
Well, I was counting shipping time in.
Yeah, so that
I was
part
counting
too,
shipping time. I think without shipping time, you can run a qualitative real-time PCR, and I want to say it's down to 2 hours.
Yeah,
You
it's
just need to
fast.
get your plane back so that you can just ship samples up yourself.
Yeah,
That would be so cool. I just fly. I could do that.
I'm saying.
That'd be a really expensive shipping cost, though.
I've done it. Picked up maggots once in my plane.
Yeah,
They're medical
there's
grade.
no
They
maggot
don't do
talk on the
anything for maggots.
podcast. No maggot talk on the podcast.
So if you look at shipping time, and that's also why it's important to start early, because depending on where you're at, if you start swabbing stuff on a Friday, this is a problem. It gets a little tougher because you got to be able to get it to a lab, and then a lot of these labs aren't open on the weekends.
No.
Yep.
So, QT-PCR, that's our gold standard. Make sure that you're looking for both neuropathic and non-neuropathic forms of herpes. They can set the test up correctly.
Yep.
So, virus isolation, that's the original test. That's a
It's just-
little tougher to do.
Yeah.
It
time
takes a little bit
consuming.
longer. So we're going to go mostly with PCR. And the thing to remember too about testing is just because you test once and you don't have it, it could take multiple tests to find the
Because of how
find
the virus sheds
It's a
and
very
the
cyclic
viral
thing,
load and the
yes.
fevers and all the things. Like you might have to test several times to catch it.
Right.
And what's nice about the PCR is this one does not get confused with vaccines.
Correct.
Versus some of the other tests that are out there, like there's an ELISA test where it looks for the antigens. That one can get messed up if they've been vaccinated.
Antibodies. Looks for the antibodies.
Antibodies, excuse
Antibodies,
me.
come on.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
5 o'clock. So
Yeah, there's a stall side ELISA test, but that's looking more for, like I said, it is looking for antibodies, which can't get confused with the vaccine. You can't have that interference.
Yeah.
So, PCR, definitely the gold standard.
I love
That's what we're
PCR.
going to do. PCR is pretty awesome. Invented on accident. If y'all ever looking for something to Google, learn about the history of PCR. It's a pretty interesting read. If you're a nerd, I'm a nerd. I
We
read
know.
it. It's pretty fun.
We know.
All right, what else do we need to cover? If we're talking about, this is something to remember. It is not zoonotic. This is
Oh, yeah.
It's not. No,
It's
it's
not.
not.
this is equine specific.
Yes.
So anyone in the equine family can get it.
That's true.
Dogs can't get it. You can't get it. Kangaroos, none of that. We can't.
But your donkey can get
Your
it.
donkey
Can get it. Donkeys are equids,
Yes, yes.
so they can get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's kind of wrapping up everything you need about herpes. And like I said too, like if you're worried, like let's say you got an upcoming show, and you're like, I don't know. You've got to talk to your veterinarian and weigh those risks too. Like that's going to be a big question in the next couple of weeks. I've already gotten. My phone's already gone off 4 times. I know they're asking about the shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to decide, is that a risk you want to take?
Right.
And part of that's going to be looking at the population of horse that's affected. What is your potential risk of exposure? And like I said, when in doubt, stay home.
That's the easiest thing we can say.
When in doubt, stay home.
So
Yeah.
home.
So
You might lose out some money if you got to cancel the show fees, but
You're going to lose a heck of a lot less money than you would if you pick this up.
Yeah.
So.
yes. So I think it's an important way those risks. And that's one of the things I have noticed. A lot of the show facilities doing the right thing.
Yes.
I've seen there's been a lot of shows that have been canceled
Yeah.
because they worked with the veterinarian for the show and said, this risk is too high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry.
The risk is too high. So
Yeah.
I think that is pretty proud of everybody for doing that. So
Yeah. Good job, guys.
So I think that kind of wraps up herpes in a nutshell. Sorry, it's not as organized as it normally is, but like
This
I said,
is like a glimpse into
yeah,
normal
it's not as polished.
No.
no, but it's real
This is
and it's factual. Everything we told you today, like I said, you can look up the citations. It came out of 2 papers, and it's probably the best source of information there is on herpes
Yes.
outbreaks.
Yes.
These are some of the smartest people in the world.
Not
so
not
it is.
Facebook,
not TikTok.
not
TikTok.
TikTok, not the guy at your feed store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are straight up real doctors that do this every day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Don't panic. Make a plan. listen to the facts.
And like I said, be prepared. Like a real simple way to be prepared is like stay up on your vaccines.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I said, not going to help you with the neuropathic form, but will help with the non-neuropathic that can also cause these clinical signs. So be prepared, stay up on your vaccines. Like, because like one of the risk factors I found interesting was horses vaccinated within 5 weeks before exposure have an increased risk
Of contracting.
Yeah.
Of
I don't know
getting
where that came from. But
I
that
have
was
no-
one
yeah,
of the things I
had
read in
it,
here.
that too. I also started that. That's so that's you don't want to be behind on your vaccines and then panic and booster them if you were exposed, and then you want to have a plan. You want to stay up to date, make a plan, stick with the plan. We make these vaccination schedules for a reason.
Correct. This one's twice a year. If you're traveling a lot, twice a year. So I think that kind of wraps it up. I think key takeaways. Talk to your vet.
Talk to your vet.
Talk to your vet.
They're your best resource.
TikTok is not your vet.
No.
Have a plan.
Yep.
Have a plan.
Have a plan.
All right. Well, thank y'all for tuning in. Hope y'all find this interesting. Hopefully it sets some of you at ease. So I think that kind of wraps up our discussion on herpes virus. Thank y'all for staying late today and getting this information out there. Hopefully our listeners appreciate it. To everybody that listens to this podcast, we really appreciate y'all. And like I said, if you ever question our dedication to vet med and to getting the information out there, don't, because like I said, we all stayed late today to get this podcast out because we thought it was important.
Yeah.
We wanted to get factual information out.
This is a factual podcast.
Yeah. So thanks for the whole team here at Countryside Equine Hospital for getting this put together. We Casey doing the editing. April's actually doing homework right now.
Yeah.
So we got Jordan behind the camera getting this recorded because April slacked off. So if y'all see April, just remind her you slacked off. But
Man.
But yeah, thank you to the whole team for getting this put together. From all of us here at Countryside Equine Hospital, hope y'all have a great week. If y'all got questions, reach out to us, reach out to your veterinarian, and let's see this through the finish line. Y'all take care. Thanks.
Wash
Bye.
your hands.
Woo-woo.